Hello everyone, I'm Sean from the US. Welcome back to Natural English Listening Part 4. As always, this video includes both Korean and English subtitles for you to follow while you're listening. I hope you enjoy Part 4, and without further ado, let's begin. Hi, where are you from?
I'm from England.
Right. So, what are some cultural taboos, things you should not do while you're in Korea? And how would you compare those to things you shouldn't do when you're in England?
The biggest one that I can think of straight away is for women and clothing is spaghetti strap tops, shoulders from the nape of your neck to like the small of your back. You shouldn't show them. You shouldn't really like wear low back tops or things with like spaghetti straps, which is why a lot of dresses or like pinafore style dresses come with like a shirt underneath them.
Okay.
Because
and this
cleavage,
is in Korea.
Yeah, cleavage is a no-no in Korea. You can get your legs out, your skirt can be as short as you want, but cleavage is a no-no. Whereas in the UK, if it's summer, you can pretty much let it all hang out, pretty much.
and so I'm curious about skirts in the UK. Can those also be short, just like in Korea?
Yeah, it depends on the setting. Like Korea has, for me at least, when I first came here for working, it was very strange to me to be able to like wear what I would consider mini skirts or like very short shorts to work. They'd still look formal, so they'd still be like your usual business attire colors, but they would be much like upper thigh. And in the UK, that is not seen as appropriate for business.
Interesting.
Really.
So it's kind of a little bit opposite.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. Another one in the UK is you don't call like your waitress or waiter over.
True.
In Korea, it's all like 저기요 or like I'm like 주문할게요. Like I can't. I'm too British. I can't do it.
Too British?
I can't. Like I'll be sat in a coffee shop or like in a restaurant or something, and if I'm with another English friend or another person who's not from Korea who doesn't really feel comfortable doing like the 저기요, we'll just sit there and like try and make eye contact with the servers so that they can like come and clear our plates or like come and serve us. I mean, restaurants that have the bells are lifesavers for me.
Okay.
I'm just like, yes, I can press the bell, I'm fine, but I cannot do Tokyo.
Why does that make you feel so uncomfortable?
Because you're interrupting their work.
Okay.
They are busy, they have other things to do.
Okay.
And so like
but you came here to eat. You are what they have to
I know.
tend to, right?
But it's like I've worked in restaurants.
Okay.
And like when there are people in the UK who do call over and they'll just be like waiter, or like they'll be really rude and they'll snap their fingers or something, and you'll just be like carrying 3 sets of someone else's plates stacked up on your wrist, and you're just like, with what hands can I help you? And it's kind of just like when they're already cleaning something away, they just look busy. If they're not looking busy, then I'll just be like, excuse me, like I'll call you over because you're not busy. But if they are, then I'm like, I physically can't do that.
So I'm hearing that there's almost a certain faith you have to put into the worker in the UK. So you walk into the restaurant and they're there to take care of you.
Yeah.
And if they're good at their job, you shouldn't have to ask them.
Oh yeah.
That's part of like the culture.
Yeah, you'll get taken to your table, and then after like maybe 3 to 5 minutes, they'll come over and ask if you're ready to order or would you like a drink. And then if you're not ready, they'll come back like maybe 2 or 3 minutes later and just be like, have you thought about it? Unless they've physically forgotten something or they haven't put an order through.
Oh, can I get some more ketchup?
Yeah, like that kind of thing. It's just like almost like a schedule kind of thing. And as a server, like you're taught, seat them, offer the menus, come back 2 to 5 minutes later, ask about drinks, ask if they're ready to order. If they are ready for drinks, take their drink order. Then when you bring their drinks to them, ask if they're ready.
You got the whole system down.
Yeah.
And do you guys tip a lot in UK or in England?
Depends where you are. In London, sometimes we don't call it tips, it's more like service charge.
Okay.
But it's not the same culture as in America, because like tipping here in Korea, you just don't do.
You don't do it?
No, it's seen as rude. But in Korea, it's like they'll have a standard wage, and it's much more culturally acceptable to, if you want to tip them, bring them a coffee, or bring them like a snack or something, bring them something else, don't give them money.
The funny thing about the tip, I've thought about this a lot. I have also worked a lot in restaurants. It is the perfect business model for the owner.
Yes.
You don't have to pay your workers as much, and it incentivizes them to do a really good job, which makes your restaurant look better. And so then they get more money, and it helps you. It's such a win-win for the owner.
Yeah, but for the people working there, what happens if you have a really big dinner party and they tip like, they spend maybe what, 200, 300 pounds or like $200 and they tip like $20?
There is insurances for big parties, at least in the US. We have over 7 people, over 7 heads, that's automatic 20%.
Oh, okay.
Gratuity.
That's nice then. Because like there's cases where I've had friends who have worked in the restaurant industry in the UK and they're just like, I always make a point to ask if I'm in the UK, do the tips go to you or do they go to the like tip jar where they're all split between all of the servers? Because you have the one person who's
it's a very common occurrence.
Yeah, you have the one person who's really helping you and is doing like a great job to help you, and then there might be someone else who's not really pulling their weight or didn't do any tables. So it's just like, why do they deserve the tips kind of thing. So I kind of prefer being in a non-tip culture. Being in a non-tip country.
As do I.
It just makes things like a lot easier, and I prefer to get coffee for someone. I'm more of like a giving gifts to people rather than giving money.
Right on. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Hi, where are you from? I'm David, I'm from Canada. Yeah, I want to hear stereotypes about what Americans think about Canadians.
Okay, so let me tell you what I've heard as an American. Canadians are super polite, too polite. They never stick up for themselves. They never stand up for themselves.
Okay.
They're very politically correct.
Yeah.
Everything has to be like packaged well. It's really cold in Canada, like it's crazy cold.
It's a fact.
You guys love maple syrup and poutine.
Yeah, every Korean knows about maple syrup.
Yeah. There are a lot of mooses up there, and you guys got a lot of big wintry animals that survive well in the cold weather.
Man, that's right. Like, it almost seems like we don't have any cities up there.
Toronto, and that's it.
Oh, Vancouver.
Vancouver, I hear a lot of good things about Vancouver.
You're making me think about American stereotypes. Like, maybe like a Harley Davidson down in the south, like American flag, like jeans, leather jacket, guns, freedom, bald eagles. Just a lot of patriotism, right?
Yeah.
America. What about after meeting Canadians? Like,
after meeting Canadians, I think they're in general very polite. They're not all like soft pushovers, for sure. That's not true. There's a lot of really tough Canadians,
but I think they're polite and politically correct to a fault. I would put that as a true stereotype.
I think that's true. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, it's hard to talk sometimes.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk.
Without fear of offending someone.
Yeah, and like someone will knock over my water, but oh, sorry. Why am I sorry? You knocked over my water. But I think one of the biggest stereotypes is like we're almost invisible, and that's the thing. It's just like you ignore it, right?
Yeah, America's little brother.
Yeah.
A little cousin. America 2.0. But yeah, I mean, this is a cliche, and no one likes to hear this answer. But the more you live abroad and travel, it's really on an individual basis. Yes, there are cultural similarities that help you connect at first.
Yeah.
But once you really get to know someone deeper, it's that person. No.
Yeah, I mean, there are more differences of people in Canada than there are differences between Canadians and Americans, right? Like,
yeah.
That's definitely true. Like, but stereotypes, they're not all wrong.
They're not wrong.
They're not all wrong. I mean, there is some truth to a stereotype.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, bye. Thank you.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Germany.
So how long have you been living in South Korea?
I live in Seoul almost 1 year now.
1 year, okay, that's getting to be a little bit of a long time.
Time flies, yeah.
Sure does, right? What about Korea do you like so much that you've decided to continue to live here?
Well, first of all, I love Korean culture. I think the people here are absolutely lovely and very welcoming, and also very interested in you. Since still there are not many foreigners overall living in Korea, like compared to Asian background and Western background, majority of people here are still from Asian background. So as a Western foreigner here, you stand out. People are very welcoming and want to get to know you. What do you do here? Like, why do you live in Korea? And where are you from? And they're interested in this cultural exchange. And I really enjoy that people are so open and friendly and really interested in your culture. And they want to show you their culture as well, like this exchange that is happening.
So in Germany, do you find that this is different? Like people are really, they don't care as much about foreigners living in their country?
But in general, Europe overall is very multicultural.
Already,
It's a very normal thing. Like everyone is just coming from everywhere. Like you wouldn't call anyone a foreigner necessarily even. Because what is a foreigner in Europe? No one really.
Could it be an insulting thing to say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know who actually lives in the country, let's say Germany, and who not, simply by just looking at them.
Yeah. So
Like
you could be Korean but born in Germany.
Exactly.
And speak German perfectly.
And that's what people assume. Like they see you, okay, you're in Germany, and especially if you speak the language, obviously, they just think, okay, you live here, you're part of the society.
Yeah.
You're one of us. It's a multicultural thinking. While in Korea, still, as a Western foreigner, you are a minority.
Yeah, it's more uncommon.
Yeah.
So they think, oh, you're visiting, you're new here, you're living here temporarily, so let me welcome you.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some positives to that.
Of course, yeah. If you love meeting new people and you love doing cultural exchange and getting to know a new culture, then it's very easy to do here. And I love that. I'm a very outgoing person. I love meeting new people, and obviously I live in Korea because I enjoy Korean culture.
Yeah.
Many things about it. So
Yeah.
it's easy to find friends, to dive more into the culture.
Yeah. Sounds like you're having a great time. Any other parts of your life that you really enjoy that make it really good to live here?
I have been very lucky here and have been offered a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And I also enjoy my job that I'm doing here in Korea now, which is another reason to stay here.
Yeah, so your work is going well,
Yes.
and you're modeling and acting right now?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, that is also based on because I'm a Western foreigner, and that is what I represent here in the model and acting industry here.
Yeah.
If I'm booked as a model or actress, then I'm specifically booked because of this Western look that I have.
Yeah, so you kind of can't ignore it. It's your strength here, especially with your work.
Work and socially as well, yeah.
Yeah, right on. And I really like your attitude that you're very positive and you just embrace it. Because some people could be like, no, I don't want to be different. I don't want to be the guest. I don't want you always to welcome me. Like, what if I just want to be regular here? But for you, you always see it as a positive thing. So I think that's a great mindset to have. So kudos to you. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Some people could find that to be a negative thing, but I think you really like that.
I understand, yeah. Obviously, the longer you would live in a country like here, and you live here longer, you know, must know better. Like the longer you live here, let's say someone lives here since like 10 years already, speaks perfect Korean, is completely immersed in the culture, and still, if you walk into a room, you are seen as the foreigner that is new, and oh, he must be a tourist.
Yeah.
And that might be annoying then. I can see, I totally understand that. But like you said, just embrace it and get into the conversation and enjoy meeting new people and talking with people. And once you get in touch with those people and you talk with someone, then you can say, hey, I've been living here a long time. And don't be offended.
For me, I'm lucky because I have a really good Korean friends here and I have foreign friends here, so I have a lot of opportunity to speak both English and Korean. And the work that I do too, a lot of entertainment work and English education, I work with the same crew, so it's like they know that I speak Korean and it's really comfortable. I don't have to introduce myself every time. I guess it depends on your job and what you do here, you know. So do you think you could see yourself living in Korea for a very long time? Or do you think eventually you would feel more comfortable living in Germany?
For the moment, I'm planning to stay here for a long time, because of the two reasons that I mentioned. Socially, it's going great, and work-wise as well. And as long as it stays like that, I'm going to stay in Korea.
Yeah.
It's a great country.
You don't miss Oktoberfest?
Oktoberfest! Well, you can always go on holiday to visit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hi, where are you from?
My name is Bart and I'm from the Netherlands.
All right. So Bart, how long have you been in Korea?
Almost 3 years now.
Why have you chosen to continue to live here in Korea year after year? What about Korea do you like so much that you're still here?
But maybe I'm a strange person when it comes to this. I always had this idea that I want to live somewhere else and I don't care where.
Okay.
Because I want to learn some different culture, some different language, stuff
Yeah.
like that. I started backpacking through Asia 3 years ago, or 3.5 years ago. And I started in South Korea. And it's like, wow, of all the countries where I've been in Asia, Korea was the best for many reasons. And those reasons are now the reason that I want to stay. It's safe. It's almost cliche to say that, right?
Yeah, it's like everybody says it's kind of boring to say that now, but it's true.
It's so
But
true.
this is not something to underrate. I'm from the US and you're from Europe. It's different. Like you gotta be like aware when you're walking down the street. You can't leave your laptop on the table in the cafe. These are small things, but they really add up to like stress.
Yeah.
That level of stress where you're putting energy into focusing on your safety and the belongings and like your security, you're able to take that energy and put it into other things.
Yep.
This is not to be taken for granted. So
Yeah.
when foreigners say that Korea is safe, that's really a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely is. It's so good that sometimes I even wish for something bad to happen. Like, come on,
Come on, let's get something
steal
interesting.
my wallet. Hit me in the face when I'm being stupid. And I know that's a joke, of course, but I'm so used to that environment that this is safe to an extreme level.
Like it must be so interesting for elderly Koreans who lived through such a tumultuous and dangerous and changing Korea to see it now safe, clean,
Yeah.
and like you're able to walk around and you can leave your stuff on the table. Not all the time, but most of the time you should be okay. It must be so interesting for them to see this huge change within their own country, you know?
Definitely, yeah. That's why I respect the elderly for that so much.
They lived in a different world. What else is keeping you here?
Social life. I like the way they hang out with other people. You can always go out for a drink and for food.
That's nice.
In the Netherlands, that's luxury. Going out for dinner is for a birthday party or when you have enough money because it's expensive. In Korea, it's really, you can do it every day.
Yeah.
And nobody would look at you like, oh, you're spoiled. I feel I can really relieve my stress while having a drink or having a nice anju.
Yeah.
Talking to my wife or not, but just being out there, looking around you, seeing other people. Yeah, I really enjoy
I
that.
get you, man. Like for me, I work at home a lot. I edit at home, and just to go out to a cafe or to go to a restaurant, have a nice affordable meal, maybe like $12 per person.
Yeah.
Just change up the environment. It's so many options like that here in Seoul. It is really nice.
Exactly.
Have you noticed this too? Like after living in Korea for a while, you almost feel like you've become a little bit Korean. If someone in your family from the Netherlands or America compliments Korea, you feel good, right?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that's right.
You're proud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many times my family members or friends in the Netherlands, they send me articles like, about Korea and they ask me for advice or they ask me for more information. So I feel proud
I know what you mean.
because Korea is still is that little bit unfamiliar country in Asia, the underdog, I would say. It's changing, but still the underdog. And you are the kind of the expert because you lived here.
Yeah.
It feels like that.
Yeah.
Within the family, yeah. People, if they know you lived in Korea, then they know you're the person
You're the
to come
man.
with questions or I'm the man.
Do you think you'll be living in Korea for a while longer?
Yeah, not sure for how long. Me and my wife were thinking about children, and the big question is like, do you want to raise them in Korea or not?
And your wife is Korean, right?
She's Korean.
Yeah.
She wants to go to the Netherlands because she wants, just like me, have that foreign experience. I'm fine with that. So probably we're gonna live 3 more years in Korea,
Yeah.
and then we're moving to the Netherlands for another adventure. But I wanna accomplish my satisfaction here.
And what's that?
Be successful in my job. And
YouTube.
YouTube, and learning Korean as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go to the Netherlands and then only study Korean for a bit and not being able to have a complete conversation. That would feel like a big fail.
Awesome. You can do it.
And before you said that you almost become a Korean yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's a very good thing, but also a bad thing because I've changed a lot over the years.
Okay.
Here in Korea. In Korea, there's a different culture compared to the Netherlands when it comes to judging and complaining and being open about what you think. Koreans, they keep things for themselves more than Dutch people do, and they care also about what other people think about them.
Yeah.
And because of that, in combination with my YouTube job, I became a different person. I don't share my opinion as I used to. I care too much about what other people think about me,
Yeah.
and before I didn't. I was more confident about being myself.
So do you feel like you're less able to speak honestly about how you really feel?
Exactly. exactly.
Like maybe there's an aspect of Korean life that you don't like, but like because you have to keep up an image in your YouTube channel and you have Korean friends,
Yeah.
you don't want to like speak honestly because you feel like you could hurt their feelings. People could say some bad things about you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that has changed a lot. So now I'm becoming more part of the mess, and before I was just really me.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, interesting guy because he's himself, and now it's more like, oh, okay, he's not really expressing what he thinks.
Yeah, I guess you have to be careful of that, you know?
That might be the reason for me to go back to the Netherlands someday.
I think like more and more these days, especially in Korea, people are thirsty and they're hungry for real conversation. There's even a term in Korea called kupbong. You know very well.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, you know, just mindlessly complimenting Korea just for the sake of like YouTube views.
Yeah.
But I think more and more people are starting to really dislike this content because it's like Koreans feel like they're being used.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how much I like Korea, so watch my video. You know, it's like, this is not a real conversation.
I live here, so there's definitely something positive to say about Korea.
Obviously, you like Korea enough to live here.
Yeah, and I want to share that on my channel. It doesn't mean I'm kupong, but when I share something more critical, it also get a backlash. People also don't like to hear that.
I would say too that that's kind of part of being a YouTuber as well.
Yeah.
I've got a ton of bad comments too, but that's part of me having like over 200,000 subscribers. Like not everybody's gonna like what I do.
Yeah.
And in some sense, like I have to just not read all the comments. I can read some of the comments because I should respond to my true fans.
Yeah.
Well, the most difficult conversations are the most important ones. I really believe that.
Most interesting ones.
And the most interesting. Right on. All right, Bart, that was marvelous. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, bye. Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Germany.
In my experience, German people speak English pretty well.
Yeah, that's right.
What is the English education like in Germany?
We learn English from a very young age on, like from elementary school. So I think I was about 9 years old or 8 years old when I started learning my first English words in school.
Oh.
Yeah, and the education system in Germany, yeah, I have to praise it. Like, it's really, really good. Usually, if you study just a little bit in school, you know, you were not totally lazy. Once you graduate school, basically, from high school, you can speak English.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think they do so well when they teach in school in Germany?
They do a good balanced combination of listening, speaking, and writing.
So are your classes in English?
Yeah, not completely in English, 50-50.
How about when you go to university? Do you have a lot of English courses?
Well, I went to university in London.
Oh, well then you're a
England.
cheater. You're a cheater.
Well, that means I learned English so well in Germany in school because I never learned English outside of school than German school.
Oh,
Like,
wow, okay.
I always just learned English in German school, and once I graduated, my English was good enough to go to London and study at a British university.
Oh, did they test you before you were able to do that with
Yes.
like an English test?
Yes,
Wow,
English test, yeah.
fantastic.
And obviously all the classes, everything was in English, and I had no problems keeping up.
I'm just trying to understand because Koreans and Japanese and a lot of East Asian countries and even French and Spanish invest a lot of money in English education.
Yeah.
But I would say the fluency rate among people, the average rate is not as high as Germany or Sweden. And I know it's complicated because German is very similar to English in terms of vocabulary. There's a lot of similar words, whereas like you don't have that with Japanese or Korean. So I'm just trying to figure out what is Germany doing so well that other countries can maybe learn from.
Well, I agree that it depends how similar our languages. Like,
Yeah.
the more similar a language that you're learning is to your own language, the
Yeah.
easier, obviously, you're going to pick it up.
For sure.
And there are similarities between German and English. And also German is a very difficult language. It has much more grammar than English. So
Yeah.
if a German learns English,
Easy mode.
maybe. I just, if I compare it to like, my Korean friends that I have this conversation often about, they often ask me, how come, like
Yeah.
you're German, but
Okay.
you speak English like a native.
Yeah.
And they often ask me that. They are curious because they're studying English so hard
I
in
know.
school and then outside of school and taking even more lessons and tutoring and all of that. They often tell me that they just don't speak in school here.
Yeah.
They only simply remember and write and copy everything.
Yeah.
And once the test is done, they forget about it
Yeah.
because they never use it.
Uh,
And if I compare that how I learned English
Yes.
in Germany, we actually had to use the language.
How?
We had to speak with each other. We were doing group training. We put in groups, and I had to speak with my fellow classmates or with the teacher. We had to do presentations. We had to do listening practice. Like the teacher would play a CD, and we had to listen to it and understand and write
Yeah.
tests, like constantly like that. So, like listening and speaking. One of the most important things. I
Absolutely,
think, yeah,
yes.
if I compare Germany and Korea in that case, I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest difference. I don't know about the other countries.
For me, like studying Spanish in US,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that we did really well is my one teacher just spoke to us in Spanish the whole class. I think that was great. Only when we really didn't understand did she speak English. I wish they would do that more here in Korea. I was an English teacher here. I think that really helped me.
Oh, really?
I think the big problem too is like we would learn Spanish and then we would never use it. And so I think that's like the one trap that you have to be careful of when you're learning in school. My question to you too is, did you guys in Germany have native English speakers come over to teach English? Because that's a very common thing here in Korea.
No, we did not.
You didn't have that, and
No.
you didn't need it, huh?
No, our teachers were all German.
Wow, that is so interesting.
No, we never had native speakers. Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
How about when you're at home and you're just watching a movie?
Oh, everything in English. Yeah, once I was at a certain level, I started listening, obviously, to American music, to English. I was watching English.
Was that a Jenny thing?
movies.
Was that a Jenny thing, or was that a German thing to do?
It's a German thing, I would say.
Okay.
Most of my friends did that. It depends on the person, obviously.
Besides English, are there any other languages that are commonly taught in school?
I can only think of French.
Okay.
Many people learn French and maybe Spanish.
So how well do Germans speak French?
Not that. But I would also say for
Okay.
Koreans to learn English, or also for a European person or American, Western person,
Oh.
to learn an Asian language, that's completely different.
Very
These
true.
languages
Yeah.
are so different from each other, like the structure of it and the grammar. It's
Yeah.
really confused. So for any Western person that speaks a Western language, wanting to learn an Asian language, and for any Asian person to learn a
Western
Western language,
languages.
it's always more difficult.
It's so true. That's a very good point. That's why I asked you how similar German and English are, because
Yeah.
you're right. It's difficult to compare English education in Asia when it's such a different language family and structure is so much harder.
Yeah.
Because I think Koreans actually learn Japanese fairly easily.
Yeah, that needs to be considered. Like we have a
Advantage.
advantage, exactly. If I compare it now with me learning Korean, like I struggle now as well, and I see how different the languages are.
Yeah,
So
that's a
I'm
good
not
point.
surprised when my Korean friends had difficulties with English. And it's not fair to say, oh, English is so easy, like why is it so hard for you? Yeah, you can't compare that. Like
Yeah.
as a Western person, you can't say that, because then try to learn an Asian language and then see how hard it is, because it's just the structure is so different.
Great.
Yeah.
Well said. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, where are you from?
Hi guys, my name is Bart and I'm from the Netherlands.
So, in the Netherlands, what is English education like? How well is it done, and how would you compare it to Korea?
Compared to Korea, it's very relaxed. Nobody or no parents are forcing you to study English.
Really?
Yeah, it's just part of the curriculum. But the reason why many Dutch people speak English well is, I think, because of the movies, the video games. We watch movies in English with Dutch subtitles only. We play video games in English, like without even Dutch. It's a small country, so Dutch people, they travel a lot. They
Yeah.
go to France, they go to Germany, to Belgium, to Spain, and there they have to communicate in English as well. On top of that, English is very similar to our language.
Okay, well, I guess that helps a lot.
It helps a lot. Many words are similar.
Would you
That's
say
a-
that even the older people in Netherlands speak English well?
Good enough to help you finding the way or with the menu card in a restaurant? Yeah.
But young people are definitely better.
Oh yeah, definitely better. Yeah. For example, my parents, they're like between the 50 and 60. They speak English well.
Wow.
Yeah, but maybe their parents, not so good. Not so good.
So how about like learning English in school? Was English taught in English? Did they show you a lot of movies? Was there a lot of conversation practice or writing or listening? How did that whole thing work?
You just follow a book. Every class is divided in conversation and listening and speaking. Sometimes you have a test, a speaking test, grammar test. It's just a little bit of everything.
Why do you think Dutch people speak so well? I can't believe that. It's just the
Because I-
language is similar. Like that, is that really just the biggest reason?
That's a very big reason, I think.
Okay, maybe
because
you're right. Okay.
The whole environment is so adapted to English that you're always exposed. So unconsciously, you're still exposed, even though you're not studying English. You're still, like say, in my spare time, I play video game, and I have to go through the English menu. I communicate with other players online in English,
True.
stuff like that.
I would guess that a lot of Dutch people, especially younger Dutch people, mix English and Dutch casually with their friends.
Yeah.
Because there's probably certain words that have to be said in English, right? Like internet, a lot of just direct loan words.
Yeah, I think we can easily switch. That's no problem. We do have loan words, of course. I'm
sure there are a ton, right?
Download and
App Store,
App Store. Yeah,
YouTube,
iPhone,
there's
YouTube.
upload on YouTube a new video. Right?
We swear in English sometimes.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So how would you compare this English education to that of Korea? I know everybody will say this. I know too because I was a teacher. Korean English education is like very test focused. They want to do well in tests.
Yeah.
Suneung and TOEIC. Like a lot of the education is geared towards doing well on these types of things. I guess that's very different from the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, yeah. First of all, like there are a lot of people in the Netherlands, especially at a young age, they don't want to study English. Like nobody wants to learn another language. Like only until later, when you go to university, it becomes more important to actually be able to speak the language. Like my university was completely in English.
Oh, wow.
I know other universities, it depends on the major, but mine was completely in English. I had a hard time with that. It's quite tough. But then you have to. You have to read every day articles in English, and you have to write your thesis, your bachelor thesis, your master's thesis in English. Yeah, then you learn English.
Do you think this is a good thing?
It's a good thing. Oh yeah, it's definitely a good thing because wherever you go in the world, you communicate in English, right?
Yeah.
It's the lingua franca. So yeah, it's a good thing.
A Brazilian and a Chinese person speak in English.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Korean and a Japanese, they also speak in English.
Very true.
In my opinion, it is important. It's not forced in the Netherlands to study English.
But even you said that your education in college is in English, right?
Yeah. But until that moment, my English was really bad.
Oh,
Terrible.
so that helped you a lot.
Yeah, it helped a lot.
Ah, interesting.
I think I started to improve myself when I traveled by myself.
I like what you said about English being the lingua franca. Like for me as an American, it's I guess very convenient for me. I guess there's nothing I can do about that. I was just born in America, but
Well, there's an advantage and a disadvantage.
what's
But
the disadvantage?
that you are not very motivated to learn another language.
Very true. Yeah.
So we are motivated to learn English, so that's our second language.
Yeah.
It's cool to say, like I have a second language.
Yeah.
But
true.
for you, yeah, I'm American, you know. It's,
Yeah.
I'm the lucky, privileged English speaker. No, I'm joking. Maybe you're more motivated to study Korean, but many Americans that I met, they could just communicate in their mother tongue. I was really jealous about that.
What should Koreans do to improve their English that they're not doing currently?
In my personal opinion, I think you shouldn't force English too much.
Okay.
You cannot force a language into someone, especially when that person is not going to use it. Then all that effort was for nothing. I studied Spanish, I never used it after, and it's all gone now. It was a waste of time, waste of money. Same goes for English. If you're not using it, it will fade out. So people, they should want to learn. They should want to speak another language. If not, then it's really difficult to learn one.
I think something that Koreans can do to improve their English is something that I heard you talk about. Maybe in college, there could be certain classes that are always taught in English, or in high school. Even like saying things like, can I go to the bathroom, should be in English.
Yeah.
I've heard this a lot from Europeans talk about like their English education. I think this is a great idea.
Yeah.
I agree though, like from a young age, if you make English too mandatory, people can grow to hate English. Because
Exactly.
it feels like it's forced on them.
Yeah.
But when they're older, high school, maybe college, like they could have like their math class or their science class in English.
Yeah.
I think that really helps a lot. Would you agree?
I agree. In my opinion, of course. I notice in Korea that Koreans, they learn a lot. They study hard, really hard, and they know exactly how it goes with grammar and sentence structure. But the moment they have to speak, I see there's some invisible threshold for them to say something because they don't know if they can say it perfectly. So for me, a language is not about speaking it perfectly, it's about communicating. Make sure that the other person understands you. So you can mix up the grammar, you can mix up different words, doesn't matter as long as the other person understands what you try to say.
Yeah, and especially if you're like a beginner or you're in the intermediate level, like if you make mistakes, that's fine. That's how you learn. That's how babies learn. Like
exactly, yeah.
Can't worry about that too much. Yeah, I see that a lot in Korean. Koreans want to speak perfectly. A lot of my old students that I used to teach, unless they were able to say it perfectly, they didn't want to speak. But like, I think this is not a good mentality. Like, just dive in there, make mistakes. That's actually going to help you grow.
Yeah. Well, another thing, because I'm living with my wife now, and I noticed that everything in Korea, like social media, movies, it all is in Korean. If you really want to make the English like a natural second language, you should create an environment in which English is used a lot.
Yeah.
With games, don't turn the settings into Korean. Turn the settings into English. A neighbor, instead of searching it in Korean, try to search it in English.
So these are good habits that people can do on themselves too. Switch your iPhone to English.
Yeah.
Switch your YouTube to English.
Exactly. Yeah. Like start with your iPhone, for example. You learn a lot of words just by going through the settings in English and not in Korean.
These are great tips.
But I want to add to this, like in Korea, Korean language is so different from English.
That's very true.
I'm privileged. It's very similar to Dutch. I live near England. As a Korean, you shouldn't feel bad if you don't speak English because it's not your language.
Yeah, it's not just Korea either. Like Japan, Russia, Saudi Arabia, a lot of these countries struggle with English.
Yeah.
Because the language is so different. They're so far from the West.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of opportunities to speak.
Exactly.
But I think Koreans are overall doing better and better every year, especially when I was a teacher. The kids, they had a very basic level of fluency. I can only imagine in 20 years, like the young generation is going to speak English like a lot better than 20 years ago. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Bart.
Yeah, you're welcome.
See you guys. Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from England.
All right. So I'm curious, what is foreign language education like in England?
When I was going to school, it was terrible. In England, we don't really start learning a second language until you hit 7th grade, like year 7. So
And how old is that?
13.
Okay,
Yeah, 12 turning 13. As much as all of my like modern foreign language teachers tried really hard, I just felt the odds were stacked against them. Like being a teacher now and seeing how much they had to deal with when I was at school. So we have these big exams and we have to do a modern foreign language. So you could choose French, you could choose German, or you could choose Spanish. In my French class, there were 35 students, and we couldn't all fit in the classroom.
Wow.
I don't teach 35 students currently, but I teach a class of 13, which is still
pretty big, actually.
I mean, for like Hagwon, yeah.
Yeah.
But for public school, no.
Yeah.
33 to 35.
There's no way every student is going to get the necessary amount of attention and special care. Yeah.
Exactly. Unless you're really, really driven to like self-study at home, and then you don't have anyone to practice with. Like how many? I would not be able to go and find a French person to go and speak French with.
Yeah. So it sounds like she had a really big class to teach.
Oh yeah.
And she kind of knew that not everybody was going to learn at the same level, so she opened herself more up to help those who were seemingly more passionate.
Yes.
Does that sound like a good summary? Interesting. So she knew that some people were just taking it just for the bare minimum requirement, and then we're never going to touch it again.
Yeah, pretty much. Like in the school system in the UK, classes are huge, teachers are way underpaid, way overworked. I totally understand like where she was coming from, even though at that age I was like, this is so unfair, you should be treating all these students equally. You've got 35 kids in a class, what can you do?
Interesting.
But then I studied Korean at university.
Okay.
And the university...
How would you compare those two? I'm so curious.
Way different.
Okay.
I mean, like at university, obviously you're paying.
And this university was also in England?
Yes.
Okay.
You are paying to learn, so you'd think that the quality would be better. And I was really lucky that I had a very small department. So we had a grammar teacher who was English and had learned Korean as a second or third language, who was amazing and awesome, and I love her to bits. And she really helped like those of us who were only from an English language base
Okay.
really understand how the grammar fit with English grammar. I think though in England especially, like I feel there's absolutely no focus at all on the benefits of being bilingual. It feels to me like in the UK they want you to kind of like dabble your toes into it. So it's just like, but most of us, like most of our second language education is where is the park, the car is green, like things that you'd never say in real life, ever. I could go to France and kind of like model my way through maybe ordering food, but I wouldn't be able to have a conversation like we're having now. Like not even close.
An interesting thing to me that pops to my mind is I'm thinking about the Dutch people, the German people, other European countries, these people that I've talked to and interviewed. As an English native speaker, you're never going to have to struggle that hard to find work in English. You're not going to be, void of opportunities because you can't really speak another language. Of course, it's going to help, but like as someone who's living in maybe Germany or Netherlands or like another small country like Lithuania, learning English for them is not only like a higher priority, it's like a necessity just to make money. So I think that has to be probably a big part of it too.
It is awful that in England, in the UK in general, and also in America, because I know that it's similar in large parts of America, people are so complacent that everybody else speaks English, so why should I have to learn a different language? And
Americans are definitely like that.
Like, it's awful because in England, like, you have so many multicultural families who are, like, I have friends who are trilingual, I have some friends who are polyglots, and like they have so much understanding of different cultures and so much understanding of like the world in general, and then you have people who are monolingual. To me, the most absurd thing is to see someone in a different country who has come to that country who speaks maybe 2-3 languages, and someone who is monolingual making fun of their accent, making fun of the way that they say certain words because they've only learned them through reading, or making fun of someone for like speaking in a different language.
It's hard. And there's just no empathy there. It's really...
Exactly, because like they don't have the understanding of how difficult it is to learn another language, especially when you are not 4, 5 or 6 years old. And it's so incredibly hard to come to a different country, uproot your entire life, not really speak the language, then kind of learn the language in bit part, and then have someone who only speaks one language, go, your accent is funny. It makes me so mad.
I hear your frustration. It's really interesting too, like hearing you talk. I think a big implication of what you're saying is learning another language is not only the practical use of another way to talk to people, it's also a way of understanding other people's situations. So if you take 4 years of Korean, well then not only do you speak some Korean or maybe speak fluent Korean, you can understand kind of a different way of seeing the world. And you're saying you can have empathy for how well someone speaks English that isn't a native English speaker. I'm blown away these days when I hear some of my Dutch friends, some of my German friends, even some of my Korean friends, I hear them speak English, I'm like, you're amazing. That's not easy to do.
People don't realize how difficult English is to learn. Having learned French, which has similar sounds because we have a lot of French loanwords in English. And having learned a bit of German, which is the same, just harsher because of the accent. But like having people who have pretty much like no Roman alphabet understanding, or like seeing them go from absolutely no English to maybe speaking almost fluently, it's really hard to do. Like, we have so many synonyms for different things. Like if you change one word in the sentence, or if you stress a different word in the sentence, it completely changes the meaning. And it's so hard for non-native speakers to become near fluent or native level in English. English speakers or monolingual English speakers don't understand it at all. But people say that like Chinese, Japanese, Korean are really hard. They are. I'm not going to deny that, because like going from an English language base to learning Korean and speaking like fluently enough, you have to learn so many different symbols or like so many different characters for different words. And I mean, like Chinese TV has subtitles because the pronunciation and like the characters that you use is different, and it's like any language that needs subtitles to understand its own language is terrifying. But at the same time, you also have that in English. Like English has so many grammatical rules and then completely disregards them.
One of the things that I think is the hardest for English learners, comparing with their own language, particularly Koreans, like the way you read something is the way you say it.
Yeah.
Whereas in English, like there's so many exceptions, like GH, GHT, thought, through, though.
But I feel that especially in English first language countries, like the acquisition of a second language is so far down on the list of priorities.
It is true, yeah.
And I really do think that like it should be way higher up than it is.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
You're welcome.
Yeah, right on. See you next time. Hi, where are you from?
I'm from England.
So when you're traveling around the world or you're here in Korea and you see East Asians, how do you know if someone is Korean or not?
Fashion.
Fashion is the number one.
Yeah, fashion is the number one tell for me. I think Koreans usually dress really well, or they dress in particular styles.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest tell for me, is that they're usually like very clean lines, very comfortable, very relaxed, but still classy. So they don't usually have a lot of bling, like not a lot of rhinestones, not a lot of accessories, like sparkly accessories.
Yeah.
But they'll probably have like very nice shoes or very nice like purses or bags.
If you see someone from afar, are there any actions they do? Any like telltale signs within their gesture? Or
Probably the volume that they're speaking.
okay.
Usually usually Koreans are quite quiet when they're talking in a group. When you live in Korea, you can just tell.
Yeah.
It's hard, but like I'd say other East Asians usually are maybe louder in their friendship groups if they're all
Interesting.
together. Maybe probably looking at their phones more often. I think a lot of Koreans, unless they don't really know where they're going, it's not like they're not doing the touristy type things. I think. So yeah, it's a hard question without making huge stereotypes and horrific generalizations.
Yeah, well, of course the ultimate answer is everyone's different.
No, I know.
But if you say that, then it's true, but it's like it doesn't give a lot to talk about in terms of cultural differences.
yeah, for Koreans, it's the trending item of the moment will be what they're wearing. So that's a good tell.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye. Hi, where are you from?
Hi guys, my name is Bart and I am from the Netherlands.
Great. So you've lived in Korea for quite a while now.
Almost 3 years now.
Okay. And you've traveled a lot, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you see East Asians, how can you tell if they're Korean or not? In your eyes, what are like the distinguishing characteristics?
First of all, fashion. I think that Koreans are very fashionable,
Yeah.
but a lot of the Koreans, they wear the same kind of fashion.
Okay.
So they stand out a little bit. But it looks good, but they stand out.
Yeah.
So when I'm in the Netherlands, and they always have a suitcase that's a little bit bigger than average when they travel.
Okay. Oh, interesting. I remember when I went to Osaka and I saw a bunch of younger Koreans traveling. I remember they were like high schoolers or something.
Yeah.
And they all had a similar haircut, like that high school boy haircut. It's like straight here and then down here. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that was very distinguishable. Yeah. How about like behaviors, or when you see them eating something, or you see them listening to something, or habits you can see from afar?
Well, I think I can only talk for Koreans. They are very careful.
Okay.
Yeah, they are very polite.
Okay.
So in my eyes, sometimes maybe too polite for let's say Dutch terms.
Yeah.
They're very careful. They bring their habits from Korea to the Netherlands.
Yeah, like what?
Like giving things with 2 hands.
So if you see from afar someone doing this,
Yeah, exactly.
probably Korean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, it's Korean. They search a lot on their phone. Instead of asking the locals, I think they want to depend on the SIM card they buy at the airport.
Interesting.
I think so, because me and my Korean wife, we always fight about that. So when we travel, she's like, oh, let's buy a SIM card, you know? And I'm like, let's just see, you know, let's just go old school with traveling.
Why do you think that your wife wants to use the SIM card? Because she wants to do it on her own? She doesn't want to bother people, or?
Safety, I think.
Safety?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know for sure that that restaurant is good, you know for sure that there's a hostel. You don't want to wander too long on the street in an unfamiliar area.
Okay.
That's my guess. Like, I don't want to generalize, but that's how I can recognize them.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the language, of course.
if you hear them speaking Korean.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Okay, you're Korean.
Is there a big Korean population in the Netherlands?
No, there isn't.
No.
No. Like, we don't have a Korean town. So we do have a lot of Chinatowns
Yeah.
in many cities, but not a Korean town. So when I'm in the Netherlands, it's really hard for me to find a good Korean restaurant or a Korean supermarket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of exposure to Chinese culture.
Yeah.
How about Japanese culture or other East Asian culture?
I think it's the same. There are not many Japanese in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So they travel a lot to the Netherlands, but they all go to the very popular landmarks. Let's say the Tulip Park or Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And as a Dutch, like, I'm not always there, so
No.
I don't really see them.
Yeah, if you're a local, you never do the tourist things.
Exactly.
obviously.
yeah. But you see a lot of exchange students.
Yeah, oh, Korean exchange students.
Yeah.
So you never really had a lot of Korean influence growing up in the Netherlands, is that
Not
correct?
at all,
So
yeah.
then what brought you to Korea?
I studied in Malaga, Spanish, for 3 months.
Oh, okay.
And in that area, there were so many Koreans also studying Spanish.
Really?
Yeah, there was even a Korean living in my apartment.
Okay.
So we had lunch together, we ate breakfast together, we shared the living room.
Yeah.
And yeah, just naturally you start talking with each other, and she shared a lot of things about Korea. It's like, wow, interesting country.
Yeah.
Maybe I should visit it after my study. And I did.
You met Koreans and you visited because you were curious about Korea.
Exactly, yeah. I was like, I want to study a foreign language, and I didn't like Spanish too much, so why not Korean?
Yeah.
And I applied for a Korean course at Youngkyoung. And that was in 2014.
So back to the original question. When you were studying in Spain with these Korean friends,
Yeah.
did you notice that they had any like habits or anything in common with each other?
What I noticed is that they really love to show their food from their home country. All of them. They knew all the places in the supermarket where you could find Korean products.
Ah,
So
okay.
they bought it and they invited us for dinner, and they cooked something Korean, which I really didn't know at the time.
Oh wow.
And then we all shared it, and that was so new to me, but really fun.
Sounds like a great experience.
Yeah, and a perfect way to get to know each other better. It's like, wow, this is such an open culture to other people
Yeah.
to share their food.
Yes. Very communal, right? And sharing.
Exactly. I was there with 2 other Dutch friends, and whenever we cooked, it was like, this is ours, you know?
Ah.
We're too selfish when it comes to food.
Okay. Yeah, I know too, when I was growing up, I noticed the Korean Americans around me, they really hold on to the Korean culture.
Yeah.
I noticed that with Koreans in any country, and even Koreans here, obviously, I think that's one of their like strengths, is they're very strong with their culture
Yeah.
and don't want to give it up.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also one of the reasons they are easy to recognize. I learned over the years now. Because they bring everything with them.
Anything else you want to say about this topic?
I wonder what Koreans think about, let's say, Dutch people, how they recognize Dutch, or
Yeah.
distinguish Dutch from other Europeans.
Yeah.
I think that's difficult.
For me, it's the height. If they're tall and they speak English really well, they're probably Dutch.
Dutch or Scandinavian somewhere.
Scandinavian,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah. In the Netherlands, I know a lot of people, they don't want to distinguish an Eastern Asian person.
Okay.
It's like, okay, they're all Chinese.
Uh-huh.
That's what's going on, because they don't know. They haven't been to the region, and so people in the Netherlands, you probably say, oh, Chinese.
I see.
Yeah.
So a lot of people in the Netherlands, they don't have that exposure. They're still a little bit ignorant
Yeah.
in that regard. So they see someone from Asia, East Asian, and they think, oh, they're Chinese.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a little bit like a Korean tells me that I'm European.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like that, because if you ask me like, do you feel European? No, I feel Dutch.
Okay.
I don't feel German, I don't feel French, I don't feel Spanish. It's all very different.
Yeah.
We, like when I meet a German, I was like, instantly I know, okay, now we're from different countries. So when the people say, oh, you're European, I feel, yeah, you're right, I'm European, but I'm not.
You're Asian, you're European.
Exactly. So in the Netherlands, many people just, okay, you're Asian. Not so much, oh, you're from Korea, or you're from China, you're from Japan. That you only learn when you meet a Korean and Japanese and you
Very
become
true.
friends or you travel. I wanted to add that. They simplify the world a little bit.
I noticed though that I think East Asians, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, at least, they take it way more seriously. I am 100% Korean, I'm not Chinese. Whereas like a German person and an Austrian and a Dutch person, they're like, it's okay, but actually I'm Dutch, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas a Korean or Japanese or Chinese is like, no, I'm Korean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that they're very more, you better not confuse them.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But I understand that because the whole social political situation is very different in this area, this region. In the Netherlands we had that for a long time, after the Second World War.
Yeah.
I think until the 90s or until 2000 something.
Yeah.
People were like making jokes about Germans in a very mean way. So we really distinguished ourselves from other people in Europe. And now we grew over that a little bit.
Yeah.
The new generations, they don't have it anymore. I guess the young generation in Korea also have it less than the older generation.
That's probably true.
Yeah. But because here it's still an issue. There's still a political conflict sometimes between Japan or China.
Oh, for sure.
Not in a way that we have with Germany or France now.
Yeah, it still exists, for sure.
It's a little bit different, I think.
It is different, and I also think like German and Dutch linguistically are quite similar.
Yeah.
Like you could probably understand a good amount of German, right? Like you could guess a lot, right?
Yeah, we studied German in high school.
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
I met a lot of Germans who don't understand Dutch at all. I think it's more forced in the Netherlands to study German.
Yeah, and English.
And it makes sense economically. It's our neighbor country. We're very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And especially the border regions, they can speak German quite well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So for a lot of Dutch people, German is a good second language. Or third.
See, that's really interesting because Korea is an isolated peninsula. It's basically an island.
Yeah.
Because you can't go to North Korea.
Exactly.
If it was touching Japan or China, I'm sure there would be some like interesting dialects of Korean and Chinese or Japanese and Korean, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're complete isolated areas, countries. And like the same way that German and Netherlands have like a lot of linguistic similarities, Koreans can't understand any Japanese if they don't study. And they can't understand Chinese. They're completely different languages. They're very much more separated. I noticed that too.
Yeah.
So the line is more blurred in Europe.
It makes,
especially because they're right next to each other.
Yeah. Geographical explanation.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. The only thing they have in common is Hanja.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's from a time when North Korea didn't exist as a separate country. So Manchuria, like China, the dynasties there, they were very connected to South Korea.
Yeah.
And with trade between countries.
Right, and boats and all that stuff too with Japan. But even like they have the same Hanja, but still like the pronunciation is different.
Yeah.
So you can't even guess.
Yeah.
It's
like
like
you need to explain it.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. Hakseng, kakse.
Yeah.
Like I guess if you listen, you could guess, but it's different. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we're rambling, but this is interesting. This is interesting. But all right, thank you so much, Bart. I'll see you next time.
You're welcome.
All right, bye.
Bye.
So in the Netherlands or in other countries in Europe, why do you think K-pop is so popular?
So these days in the Netherlands, there's a whole discussion like whether it will be popular or not.
Yeah.
But it's now popular among a very small group. It's like a subculture. It's not the mainstream yet. And why the subculture like it so much? Because it has something oriental. They learn something about Asia, about Korea. It's very fashionable.
Yes.
It's very dynamic and diverse. And the younger people, they are so into the social media, they're already so connected with other parts of the world. And through K-pop, they can easily connect with other parts of the world. So it's like the stepping stone.
Yeah. I think also they're really like clean, they dance well, they look good.
Yeah.
They dress well, their hair is perfect.
Yeah.
It's like, physically as an image, they're like almost perfect, like a Barbie doll.
Exactly, and you can be part of it, and it's quite easy. You don't have to look perfect yourself. You just have to be into the music. It's like a lifestyle also. It's not only listening to the music, you can dance on yourself, you can meet other K-pop lovers, you can collect whatever the items that the entertainment companies make for the fans. It's more than that, it's like a lifestyle. It's like me going to the football club every week because I love football.
Okay.
For them it's K-pop. It's just being part of something. I think there's not a really strong science behind it.
Okay, great. All right. Anything else you want to say about this topic?
I think so. I hope that people just in the world, so the older generations, respect K-pop as music.
Yeah, it's a real art form.
It's a real form of art, and they don't have to talk negatively about it all the time. They don't have to burn it down to the ground. They don't have to attack the fans just because it's something new. Make sure that you talk to the people and ask them, like, are you into this, and why is it like this, you know?
Yeah.
Don't be so xenophobic about it.
Okay.
And I still see that too much.
Oh, really?
Just leave it as it is, you know? They don't bother you. And I think I'm talking to the Netherlands now. It just frustrates me a little bit.
You don't have to love it, just respect it.
Yeah, and you don't have to like it, but you don't have to burn it down either. Yeah.
Right on. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
I'd say that if you are coming to Korea for a long amount of time, like more than like tourism, and you are into K-pop, it's not exactly like as easy to run into idols as some people may make it out to. Like I say, I've met many, but that was when I was studying here. And like that was in 2013, 2014, and since then the fan base has got bigger. It's really hard. Like they're people too.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
they need to live their own lives. So if you're actively seeking them out, it can be quite like you can get quite disappointed quite quickly. Very famous K-pop idols they already have groups of people that follow them around to like their houses and their personal lives, and it's a real problem.
Yeah.
So if you're coming to Korea, like go to concerts, buy merchandise, support your idols, like do what you need to make them be popular. But don't go to their houses, don't invade their personal life. Like,
of course, yeah.
They need their privacy.
Yeah.
And especially now that like there is social media, like interact with them via social media.
There you go. It's a great advice.
Yeah.
That's great advice. I like that. Thank you so much.
Oh, no worries.
All right, bye. Congratulations, you watched the video all the way to the end. Well done. I wish you all luck on your English learning journey, and I will see you in the next video. See you later.